I think I'll speak on this just for the hell of it. Satanism is not another branch of Christianity. It's a type of paganism. Virtually all Satanists are polytheistic. It's extraordinarily common for Satanists to also venerate pagan gods, such as Egyptian deities, Greek deities, etc. Virtually every Satanist out there views Satan as one of many pagan gods and venerates pagan gods that have not been identified as demons. The most popular demonological hierarchy among Satanists is the Ars Goetia. And the 72 Goetic demons include Naberius, also known as Cerberus, and Amon, the Egyptian deity. You see my point. The Qliphoth is also very popular among us, and you can look at how many of the Qliphothic demons were venerated as pagan deities. There's a lot of nuance to this. To some extent, mentality comes into play. Like, if you really expect to see the spirit you summoned and have done the training necessary to be able to do so, there's a better chance of you seeing them. Especially if you go into it with a mentality of, well, I can't wait to see what happens during this rite, instead of having a bunch of preconceptions about what's going to occur. To some extent, spirits do choose whether or not to be visible to you. And there is a very real thing where they try not to scare the shit out of you. Like, I was reading the Arachne's blog, and they talked about how 90% of the time your own gods, when in your presence, don't even show themselves. I read that and asked out loud, is that true? 5 spirits showed themselves to me, and one of them got really close in a very scary form to help me understand why they weren't always showing themselves to me. Alright, for all the Christians saying I'm gonna go to hell for worshipping deities other than theirs, have you ever considered that maybe it's like the other way around? Like, maybe y'all are the ones stuck with a really awful afterlife? Have you ever really sat and thought about how bizarre and restrictive it is that the simple, harmless act of rubbing one out is a defiance of the Christian God? Like, really think about how bizarre and fucked up and controlling that is. It's a very, very deranged rule. Why would you want to spend all of eternity with that deranged control freak? Think about it. What's that gonna be like? Let's talk about the spiritual industry. You know, professional psychics, witches for hire, etc. You know how outside of the spiritual world, certain professions require PhDs or other kinds of degrees, and we have the FDA to keep our food from becoming poisonous? The spiritual industry is completely unregulated. Ergo, no one's keeping poison out of your food. All of the worst elements of capitalism are going to come into play in this industry. You don't need any form of certification to start selling money spells. Ergo, anyone can try to sell you a money spell, including people who just don't know how to do it. Obviously, some people are just straight up frauds and know they're frauds. Others are delusional. There are some decent practitioners who are so trapped in ego that they think they can just sell anything, regardless of whether or not they have experience with it. There are people out there who, if you pay them for a ritual, they will straight up feed on you. There are people out there who, once you hire them, they will send a spirit to attack you, tell you you're being attacked by a spirit, and then try and get you to pay them to remove it. Review pages are very important. Now, as with most things, most people don't take the time to leave reviews, but the fact that a practitioner is willing to just let people leave reviews says a lot. Testimonials are good. Some testimonials are filmed in video format. I have an entire playlist of people sitting in front of a camera talking about their experience with my services. But there's also, these anonymous testimonials in text format. The ones where you really have no idea whether or not the professional in question sent themselves that message. Any practitioner with any level of skill can get some testimonials. Like, any practitioner with some level of skill can get good results for some people. It does not mean that they are qualified to be a professional practitioner. Someone who uses testimonials but does not have a review page is picking and choosing which customer experiences you are shown. Somebody with a review page is not. Witchy Storytime with VK Johannam. So there's this magical shop I go to that I've just never had a bad experience at, except for once. I was going to get specifically a candle of a certain color that I needed for a spell. I also grabbed a few random stuff. The cashier was one I'd never seen before. She's a professional spiritual coach and worker who, generally stays in the back. So she locks on to the candle that I need for the spell and asks me what it's for. So I said, okay, well, here's the situation I intend to resolve, and here's the spell I intend to use. So she says, the dead are, wanting to get involved, La Santissima is speaking to her, all that shit, right? She says that I'm actually taking the wrong approach, that we need to petition the gods to get divine justice instead of revenge, which is actually pretty much what I was doing. So I hear her out. She didn't channel everything perfectly. She had to be nudged a little bit to get it all right. You know how it is. It's normal. So she gives me her number. I text her when I get back, like I'm asked to. So she tells me that tomorrow we're going to have a free consultation. She's going to petition the spirits, but that she's going to have to scold me a bit on La Santissima's behalf because there's a variety of things I'm doing wrong. She tells me what she's into because all the stuff I saw in her ritual space were very unfamiliar to me. To this day, some of the stuff she told me she was initiated into, I don't even know what it is. Lakumi, for example, no clue what that is. She tells me that I'd be better off learning from indigenous practices and that I wouldn't really get the type of magical results I want until I understand the laws of nature, which are really not part of my tradition. I was unfamiliar with this concept. Now, she was being real condescending, right? Calling me child over and over again. And I said, honestly, if someone who practices stuff I've never even heard of and is a fellow professional wants to scold me a bit, I can humble myself and just let it happen. Maybe I'll learn something, improve. So she asks why I'm up so late, and I say, well, I'm actually a fellow professional, but I work with dark spirits, ergo, it's optimal for me to be nocturnal. I only mentioned being a fellow professional to explain my sleep cycle and why I have it. That's usually how I explain my sleep cycle to people. But once I told her that I was a fellow professional, all of her channeling abilities just flew right out the fucking window. Alright, Witchy Storytime Part 2. So I tell the spiritual worker that I'm a fellow professional. And then all of her channeling abilities fly right out the window. Everything that came forward after that was just ego and bias. First thing she does is tell me that I'm not going to make any money as a spiritual worker until I conform to her beliefs and practices. I just straight up say, that's not right, you're slipping up a bit. I actually made this much yesterday. Then I send another text clarifying, I'm not trying to be boastful or dick swing or anything. I'm just saying that you're slipping up. Instead of acknowledging the mistake, she says, well, I make way more than that. Next thing she does is tell me that my career is just not going to go anywhere. She says that I'm just going to be another forgettable face, I'm sitting here thinking, I know I'm not a big deal on witch talk, but I have a pretty well-established name in the satanic community. Forgettable face. It's just not true. Next thing she does is tell me that I'm not going to get anywhere without a mentor. So I told her that I did have a mentor. So I spoke to my non-existent mentor about the operation I was planning to utilize and what she said would happen if I tried to use that. And it turns out her prediction was just not even feasible. So I tell her that I'm going to proceed as I originally planned, and it did go well. Obviously, I did confirm future success with my tarot cards after speaking to the spiritual worker and my mentor. Moral of the story is, take people with a grain of salt and try to respect traditions different from your own as equal to your own, even if you've never heard of them. But yeah, to clarify, she claimed to be initiated into 8 different spiritual practices, 3 of which I don't know what are, and the others were ATRs, basically. Confession, I still go to the store. All of the most common questions that my contemporaries in the industry and I get asked are, pertaining to the ability to see and hear spirits. Like when I used to offer video consultations, people would often ask, how can I improve my ability to see and hear spirits? And I would always say, how often do you meditate on your chakras? They would always say, not very. Easy solution. Additionally, people often approach me saying, hey, I tried to summon this being, but they didn't come. Why are they ignoring me? And then I always say, hey, have you opened your chakras? Have you worked on them? The answer is always no. Then I have to tell them, you are not being ignored. You just haven't developed the skill set to see and hear spirits yet. You need to train more. What do I, as a Satanist, have against Jehovah? Well, a lot of things. For one, falsely claiming to be the only God. If someone convinces you that there's only one God, there's a good chance that'll prevent you from finding the spiritual path that's right for you. Another thing is banishing idolatry. I use idols in my religious practice. It's a very potent way to connect to the divine. Laws such as that really limit humankind's spiritual connection with the divine. He banned certain types of divination. If you look at all of this, what he's doing is he is stifling humankind's spiritual potential. He also outlawed necromancy. There's a lot to gain from necromancy. And think about the implications of banning necromancy. If my friend dies and gets bound here as a poltergeist, I can't even help him pass on? Really? Over the past 6 years, I've used 9 different online platforms to try and help people grow spiritually, activate their spiritual potential, learn magic. This means that my goals are in direct opposition to Jehovah's vested interest in stifling humankind's spiritual potential. That's what I have against him. But honestly, I would barely ever talk about Jehovah if I didn't have his followers constantly jumping into my comment sections trying to sway me off the path that's right for me.
Clapper.
This is a good question. Finding out whether or not someone cursed you or attempted to magically harm you can be difficult for a number of reasons. For one, there's no such thing as being too psychic to be paranoid, or impulsive, or rush to conclusions. If you think someone has attempted to magically harm you, you should definitely, try to verify that through divination. This is because, sometimes bad things just happen. For example, one time I fell out with a friend pretty hard, and shortly afterwards, they almost died. And of course, their friends were telling them, I'm pretty sure VK cursed you. But of course, my spirits and I had nothing to do with it. The problem with sensing curses or using claircognizance to know whether or not someone's attempted anything on you is that as a practitioner, you are always developing as a psychic. This will actually lead to the awakening of new spiritual gifts, new psychic abilities that you will have to learn to interpret. Let's take, for example, my ability to see the future. On one occasion, I was, just lying on a couch, and I was just barraged by these vivid visions where I basically saw an entire situation play out. A situation of me getting backstabbed. But I had never seen the future in that way before, so I completely misinterpreted the significance of the visions, and everything I saw played out, and I never saw it coming. Similarly, on one occasion, I learned to sense a new type of sort of energetic influence. And my first interpretation of that was, oh, this person is trying to curse me. One of my teachers did divination about it, and it wasn't a curse. It was just me sensing the way that a certain planetary body was moving things around. So obviously, you can use a pendulum. You can draw tarot cards that will represent the suspect's intentions towards you. There's a lot of ways you can use divination to find out whether or not someone did indeed try to curse you. People in occult communities tend to be very curse happy. So it's frankly almost normal to wonder whether or not someone's going to try something on you after you fall out with them. I can only imagine how many curse wars have started simply because of paranoia. We're going to talk about Damon Barzai, or more specifically, his sigils. If you don't know, Damon Barzai is a fantastic black magic author. He's super fucking good. But his sigils aren't what you would expect. Across the world, people have used vaginas to depict the divine feminine in symbolism. You know that fish that the Christians use? That actually originated as a symbol of the divine feminine. The fish is a vagina. Now, Damon Barzai also incorporates depictions of the vagina into his sigils. Allow me to put you on a little tour. So this is his sigil of Nyarlathotep. See that symbol in the middle? That's a vagina. This is his sigil of Hecate. See that? That's a vagina. Vagina with wings. Snake vagina. Vagina on fire. Psychedelic ninja star vagina. Moonlit vagina. Vagina in a pentagram. Tentacle vagina. Yo, I'm not kidding, guys. Almost all of it is vagina. Alright, I got a hot tip for aspiring spiritual workers. You're probably going to want to look at what other professionals on the market are doing to help you decide what you want to do. Maybe even get advice from a few. That's totally normal. But that's different from stealing someone's shit, ripping someone off. If you choose to rip someone else off, they're probably going to come talk to you about it, if you're lucky. If you decide to continue ripping them off, what usually happens is you get mass cursed by other professionals. Like an entire group of professional spiritual workers all putting curses on you. That's often how that ends.